Hello, sweethearts. Today on Stories for Kids, I'm going to tell the story of Thumbelina. There was once a woman who wanted to have a child. So she went to an old witch. "Here is a barley corn for you," said the witch. "Put it in a flower pot. Then you will see something happen." The woman went home and planted the barley corn. Immediately, there grew out of it a large and beautiful flower, which happened to look like a tulip. When it burst open, in the middle of the blossom sat a little girl, quite tiny, trim, and pretty. She was scarcely half a thumb in height, so they called her Thumbelina. She could sing with a voice more soft and sweet than had ever been heard before. She grew into a beautiful young woman who was kind to everyone. One night when she was lying in her pretty little walnut shell bed, an old toad crept in through the window. She saw Thumbelina and thought, "This will make a beautiful wife for my son." She picked up the walnut shell with Thumbelina inside and went hopping with it through the window and into the garden. The old toad swam with Thumbelina in her walnut shell bed and placed her on a lily pad. Thumbelina woke up very early in the morning, and when she saw where she was, she began to cry bitterly. The old toad swam out with her ugly son to the leaf where Thumbelina sat. "Here is my son," said the old toad. "You shall marry him and live in great magnificence down under the marsh." Thumbelina sat alone in the great green leaf and wept. The little fishes swimming about heard what she said and nibbled at the stem until they had nibbled it into two. She tied her sash to a passing butterfly and drifted away on her lily pad. Thumbelina sailed past several towns, and then a great finch came flying past, put his claws around her slender waist, and flew her to a tree. The whole summer, Thumbelina lived alone in the great wood. She plaited a bed for herself out of blades of grass and hung it up under a clover leaf so that she was protected from the rain. She gathered honey from the flowers for food and drank the dew in the leaves every morning. Thus summer and autumn passed. But then came winter, long, cold winter. She was terribly cold, for her clothes were ragged, and she herself was so small and thin. As it began to snow, she looked for another home. She came to the door of a field mouse, who had a little hole under a cornstalk. She begged for a little piece of barley, for she had had nothing to eat for the last 2 days. "Poor little creature," said the field mouse, for she was a kind-hearted old thing. "You may spend the winter with me, but you must keep my room clean and tidy and tell me stories." "I'm expecting a visitor," said the field mouse one day. "My friend Mr. Mole. He is so rich and so accomplished." The field mouse told her. Thumbelina sang so prettily that the mole fell in love with her. By the end of the winter, Thumbelina had been persuaded to marry the mole. She was miserable and unhappy. One day she found an injured swallow in the tunnel between the mole's house and the field mouse's house. She braided a great big blanket out of straw and carried it off and spread it over the injured bird and piled upon it whistledown, as soft as cotton wool, which she had found in the field mouse's room, so that that poor little thing could be warm and snug. By spring, the swallow had healed and was strong enough to fly. On the day of her wedding, the swallow asked Thumbelina if she would go with him. Thumbelina got on the swallow's back, and up he flew into the air, over the woods and seas. When they got to the swallow's home, Thumbelina made a home for herself among the lovely flowers. Then one day, to her astonishment, she found a tiny little man sitting in the middle of a flower, as white and transparent as if he had been made of glass. He had the prettiest golden crown on his head and the most beautiful wings on his shoulders. He himself was no bigger than Thumbelina. When he saw Thumbelina, he was delighted, for she was the most beautiful and kind girl he had ever met. So he took his golden crown from off his head and put it on hers, and asked her name and if she would be his wife. And then she would be the queen of all the flowers. She said yes to the noble prince. Thumbelina was given a beautiful pair of wings, which fastened to her back, and now she too could fly from flower to flower. All the fairies came out of the flowers and wished them joy for the wedding. And that is the story of Thumbelina. Thanks for listening, sweethearts. That's it for Stories for Kids. Come back next week for my next story. Bye-bye.